Ryan. I'm the host of the program. It's our Miley Wears Wet Shirts edition of Ryan's Rock Show. Today we're going to be speaking to a band called A Static Lullaby. But first, your weekly essential where we play you a band that you need to know if you don't know them already. This band is called Dance Gavin Dance, and you're listening to Ryan's Rock Show. For your weekly essential, be sure to send us your comments, your questions, and or your suggestions to ryansrockshow.com. I had a chance to meet up with Dane from A Static Lullaby. Listen to what he had to say.
It's pretty wild, actually, because, I know when the band first started, it was doing, kind of like something that not a lot of people have been doing, with the whole screaming and singing at the same time, dual vocals and stuff. And so, it was one of the first bands to come out and do that, and, it was kind of like the thing then, and they called it screamo and stuff. And, and so it's kind of odd seeing all these, the band took a break for a while, and then there's all these new bands, that come up that are kind of doing the same thing, took over for us, basically, so it's flattering. I mean, it's cool, it's cool to, know that you kind of started a thing, even though now it's kind of watered down and, not what it used to be anymore, but it's flattering, it's cool.
When you see other bands that have kind of taken your style and ran with it, how does it make you feel?
It's like I said, I mean, it's pretty much, it's just flattering, because we've grown as a band since then, we're not really doing the same thing we were doing 7 years ago, so it's cool that people were able to take that style and become successful off of it, we're just moving in a whole new direction musically now, though, so it's not really an issue for us anymore, even though so many other bands are doing it now. Kind of just trying to, we're just kind of doing what we want to do musically now and kind of growing, musically.
Well, musically now compared to when you first started, how have you grown?
I'd say definitely in ways of we definitely grown up as people, as a person, lyrically and stuff, kind of all aged, 7 years, and musically, it's on a total different level, because everyone's, been playing for the past, 15 years of their life,
Yeah.
So, obviously you grow and you get better and you know what works for you and you know what works for the band, so I'd say probably lyrically and musically everything's on a new, more mature level.
Well, when you look back 7 years ago when you were first starting out with the Static Lullaby, could you have imagined yourself where you're at now?
No, it's pretty surprising, man. I mean, it's really cool. I mean, because the band when it first started, it was the new thing, screamo and everything, and then we kind of took a year and a half hiatus and kind of were under the radar, rethinking stuff, priorities and musically and stuff, and so coming back and kind of starting over again with a whole new music style and band, it's kind of it's almost at a point it was starting up from ground zero, I mean, we still have the fan base and stuff, but we're kind of breaking into a new genre, and meeting all these newer bands, and so, it's kind of totally different, but it's really cool, definitely looking back on it, and seeing where we were, in high school compared to now,
Yeah. When you were pretty much revamping everything after your hiatus, did you ever think of, changing your name?
We did. I mean, the band lost a few members, got a few new members and stuff, but, I mean, the guys, grew up with this band, it's kind of it's not over, we didn't want to, totally start over and have a brand new band and stuff, because, we still like, the old stuff we played, we still played some old songs and stuff, but, we just wanted to, because we still liked the members, we still liked each other. We liked what we have going on, so we wanted to keep it that way, and just grow,
Over the years, how have you changed personally? What have you learned from touring and being in this band?
I mean, you learn a lot about the music industry, what's good about it, what's bad about it, and all the drama sometimes that can happen between bands, if you're dealing with anything from, drama, hearing what other bands are saying about you, or, stuff like that. I mean, it's kind of you kind of just learn what works and what doesn't work,
How does that affect you when another band, talks shit or something?
I mean, that, you can't really let that, stuff get to you, I mean, people, no matter what happens, happens, people are going to talk. Whether you're successful at a time, whether you're at a point where you're not doing successful, people are going to talk shit in.
Yeah.
So you just let it go. Know who your friends are and stick to them and meet new people and. You just gotta let that stuff go because you can't look on message boards and see what people are saying about you and let it get to you,
Yeah.
You kind of just gotta.
Did it ever get to you at a certain point in your life?
Like, when you release a new record, sometimes you catch yourself checking, like fan boards and stuff and seeing what people think about it and stuff, and luckily a lot of the times it's really positive, so, at a point you kind of like, you see it and you're like, God, crap, people don't like it, this guy was saying, lyrics are stupid or like musically it's not good or whatever, you just gotta let that stuff go. Some people are just jealous,
Was it? Well, I guess when you're younger and you grow into that, or when you're first starting out as a band, I think a lot of kids don't realize the amount of negativity that one band can receive. Did you have to develop a thick skin? Because you were saying that you had to just let it go.
Yeah.
Was it something that you had to develop?
Yeah, because it's an art form you're creating, it's like something you spent years of your life doing and working on, and so it's obviously not impossible to not get hurt if someone is doesn't like it, but that's comes with the business, people, same with painting or anything like that, it's like you're going to create something that not everyone's going to like it. It's impossible for not everyone to like it. People don't like the Beatles,
That's true.
Stuff like that. So you just kind of got to say, I like it, other people like it, it's good, some people aren't going to like it, and you just got to deal with it, you got to accept it.
Well, what about the music industry and the things that you've learned? You said you learned a lot of things over the years.
Well, one thing we learned is the band actually signed to a major label, and it's a lot better being on an indie label.
Columbia, right?
Yeah, we were on Columbia for a while, and then we kind of took a hiatus, decided not to try to stay with them and work things out for the record, because honestly, bigger labels, they just throw money at you and don't even care. They don't know the right spots to advertise, the right areas, and an indie label, they work directly with you. You literally can call the owner of the label and be like, this is our problem, and they're cool with changing stuff and adapting to how you think things should be perceived, for a new album, anything from advertising to marketing to t-shirt designs, It's just a lot better being with guys who are more personal, and that's what we like about Fearless Records now, is because they're just super cool. We have the owner's number in our phone, personal cell phone. You can just call him directly and say, look, this is what we want to do, and it'll be cool for you, and we'll work with you.
What made you guys sign to Columbia to begin with?
Basically, just the whole idea that it's a major record label, throw a bunch of money at, it's obviously that's something all bands are looking for is success, and being able to live off the music you're playing rather than, having a second job or something like that, So it's a big deal. We're on Ferret, and then just wow, Columbia wants to sign us and throw all this money at us and be on a major label, It's a perception people have about major labels, So some bands fall into it, some bands stick with their label, because the better you do, the more money your indie label is going to get, the more money they put back.
Okay.
And just go from there. But that was just kind of a different band at the time, and it just kind of put out a record that really wasn't what it was supposed to be, and so it was a totally different band. It sounded like a different band. It was a different style of music, and Columbia just they probably didn't even listen to the record, They just put it out.
Seriously.
They had our screamer Joe. They turned him down in the mix and stuff, just so it was more radio friendly, and so it was just not a good situation for us,
Well, were they nitty gritty about perfection? What was that like?
I think studio-wise, maybe they were. They really wanted to write, have the band write singles, radio-friendly singles and stuff. And that was actually, the band wrote that song "Stand Up." That was the main single from that record. It was actually the last song the band wrote, because it's just we're all right, they want a pop single, and so we wrote it. And the song was actually about record industry wanting, to put bands together and mold them in a certain way, and it's kind of talking shit, but it's funny because they got really stoked on it and put it on the radio and stuff, so
how do they approach you and say that? They'd sit your band down, they're like, hey, we want you to write a pop song?
Basically.
Really?
They're pretty straight up about it. don't mess around.
Do they? What about like? I mean, because I know they're concerned with image as well. Did they tell you that you have to do this or you have to do that?
In a way, they didn't really try to form the band image as much as the sound, you know?
Yeah.
And I think if the sound was successful, then maybe they really got to the point where, like, all right, you gotta cut your hair, and you guys all gotta wear black when you play, you know? I mean, really, honestly, major record labels really don't know how to market bands like this, you know?
Mm-hmm.
They can market like a straight up metal band or like Britney Spears or something, but like a band that's in between, that's crossing genres, they really don't know what to do, you know?
Well, you can't really market that to like commercial radio anyway. You know, you can't. You know, that's not something that you're going to hear on like clear channel stations across the country.
Yeah, I think that's the whole point. Because like, I mean, dude, we have a guy in the band who only screams.
Yeah.
You know, so what are we gonna do? I mean, like, you can't really get popular, and so that's the thing. The thing with this new record is that we decided to move towards more of a heavier, like southern metal Pantera kind of sound because that's what we all wanted to do, you know. And,
Yeah.
and we can't go poppier because we have a screamer, you know. Like we wanted like have heavy music, you know. So.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. Like, after the Columbia situation, when you guys had your hiatus and now back on an indie label, you said it feels more refreshing. You guys can pretty much do what you want now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm just trying to think. That's like night and day, though. You know.
Yeah.
Like working with a major label that tells you pretty much what you need to do, and they don't know how to market you. What was the difference in sales?
Honestly, the new record, the first record we put out on Fearless, once we went back to the indie label, did way better. Like the first week was better. Yeah, I mean the first week was much better, and overall album sales were much better just because they knew what markets to put it in, you know, and what tours to put us on, and what magazine articles to have ads in, and what stores to put it in, and how to market. You know, I mean, just like they got their shit way more straight than the major labels.
That is nuts.
Major labels have all these bands, and they're just, you know, throwing money in all these different directions, whereas an indie label, you know, they're focusing on like, you know, 10, 15 bands, and they know how all these bands work, and they know all the members, you know.
That's crazy. I'm just like, I'm trying to comprehend. What about like other bands that were on major labels that you guys knew?
It really like, it's kind of hit or miss with some labels because a lot of labels now, you know, are like upstreaming and still they have a hand. Indie labels still have a hand in the record.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, sometimes if you just go straight to a major label, you know, that's the main issue. Like, but now, like, if you're on an indie label that is like partners with Warner or Atlantic, you know, they're getting in the big money, but they're still dealing with you as an indie label. You know?
That's cool.
That's a whole lot better for situation.
Yeah,
you know?
way different.
Yeah.
You mentioned something about your new sound being like, well, being more Pantera influenced. You guys were pretty big on Pantera, right? Like in general?
Yeah, our lead singer is his favorite band ever, you know?
Yeah.
And we're all just, it was just at a point where we had an issue with our second guitar player and he ended up leaving after Warped Tour.
Yeah.
And we were at a point where like, well, should we get a new guitar player? And so we can, you know, finish writing this record. We just started to say as a four-piece, you know, and Dan and I, the other guitar player, just wrote all the music, and I write a lot more riff-based things, you know, like, because I'm a bass player, and so it just kind of became this whole different thing. Everyone wanted to play heavier music, you know, and it was just much easier as just two people writing the music and working on that, and different influences, like, our drummer's insane, you know, and he was able to really step up and use a lot of his metal influence, you know, and so, I mean, it's just a lot more comfortable style of music for us, you know.
That's cool. Let me ask you a question. You know, because like, what's up, dude? What's up, bro? You want a little interview?
Yeah. Sorry. This is the lead singer right here.
It's cool. What's up, man? You know, I talked to a lot of bands, and obviously Nirvana had a huge cultural influence on just on the world in general. I think that there are a lot of bands that don't get as much credit, but it still influenced music that we listen to today.
Yeah.
Are there any bands that come into your mind?
It's wild because like we all like a very large range of music. Like my favorite bands are like Johnny Cash and Rage Against the Machine. You know?
Yeah.
And then Joe's, you know, main bands are bands like, you know, like really heavy bands like, you know, Pantera, and then he also really loves Nirvana, and our drummer loves just straight metal sometimes, you know. And, I mean, it's such a wide range, and kind of like you draw a line between being influenced heavily by the music you listen to and being inspired. And it's kind of like, that's kind of the situation with us. It's just like, what we feel we want to play is a lot different than what we're inspired by, you know? Like, we're inspired by bands that, like, made all the right moves and are successful and branched out and didn't stay in the same genre and didn't stay in the same rut. And they branched out and they did try different things, you know? And so that's what, it's basically more inspiration rather than, you know, like drawing musically and like sounding like that.
Yeah. Are there any new bands that inspire you?
Yeah, I mean, like, not necessarily new, like brand new, because like we went and saw Every Time I Die, I Take Action to it. Like, man, this is like, they're so fun, you know, like, like their live show is really well done. They just have fun on stage, you know. It's not all dressing the same and having like choreographed headbangs and stuff, you know. It's about like being in the moment and just, you know, having energy on stage and interacting with kids and stuff, you know. So bands who kind of draw that in, come out, like bands like Every Time I Die, and, you know, it's hard to say, you know. I mean, we really respect a lot of newer bands, you know, for, you know, what they're doing, and all these dudes work really hard, you know.
For sure.
It's like, it's not easy to tour a year straight in a band, you know. It's like, it seems glamorous, but it's absolutely not. And so, you know, I really respect all these bands that work really hard and in the end, you know, are successful because of it.
How do you maintain a life outside of the band?
Dude, it's weird. It's like, first of all, the most important part is surrounding yourselves with, you know, a solid crew, you know, like, you guys you gotta get along with your band, obviously, because you're living, right, you know, in close quarters with them. And even still off the road, like, we still live together. I still live with Joe, the lead singer, you know, and it's just kind of like more of a brotherhood rather than, you know, putting up with someone and just trying to get through a tour, you know. It's like, so when you tour for so long and you get home, it's really weird. It's like, you just feel like you're absolutely not productive, you know, you're not doing anything. You're just kind of like chilling at home playing Xbox or something, you know?
Really?
Yeah.
Like, do you do anything outside of the band?
Honestly, man, the past year of our life has been dedicated to focusing on this band and writing the new record and being the best we can be, you know, and then when we're off, dude, we try to just hang out with family, you know, and be close friends that we don't get to see a lot. And, you know, sometimes we get to a point where we're just vegging out, playing Xbox and just skateboarding, you know, and doing whatever, you know.
Yeah.
So, but it's really all about spending time with people that you know, don't get to see a lot. It's because you're gone all the time, you know.
That's crazy. Like, where do you see yourself going in the future? Like, what are your personal goals?
Dude, right now it's just, we're just taking each day, you know. You know, step by step and focusing on how this band is doing, you know, and we're just focused on growing this band and being as musically productive as possible and just getting out there and having people hear the music, you know. So it's kind of a daily thing rather than long term at this point, you know. Like, and once, you know, we start feeling the effects of this record and then, you know, success, then like maybe, you know, start trying to plan on a life goal. But right now it's all about, you know, just trying to get people to hear this new record and stuff, you know?
For sure. This is a weird question, but like, I know me living in LA, life moves so fast, and I don't know if it's just because, you know, it's a big city and, you know, so many things happen, but being on the road, does life move really fast? Does it seem like it does?
Not really. It's like you're on, like, it kind of becomes like a set schedule. You have to do the exact same thing every day. Like, you know, your load-in time, you're set up, and then you get to spend like maybe 2 or 3 hours in the city, you know, or in the new area you're at. You know, it's not that much time because a lot of it is focused and dedicated to the show you're running, you know, and then, you know, obviously there's like, it's basically like you're waiting around to play for half an hour, and then you wait for the next day to wait around and play for half an hour, you know. It's just like, and it's crazy because sometimes you don't have internet or anything, you know, you check your computer for 3 or 4 days, you know, you turn it on, you're like, oh shit, you know, this comedian died, you know, or you know, something's going on with the, you know, presidential election they had no idea it happened 3 days ago, you know. And so life definitely, it's a lot more, I don't even know what the word would be, just like separated from normal life, you know?
Yeah.
Because you're focused on what you're doing at the time and traveling and stuff, you know?
If you had to do this all over again, I guess, for instance, take a younger band, you know, a band that just formed, what would your course of action be to be a successful touring band?
Honestly, man, it's just playing the music that you're passionate about and, you know, focusing and making it what you feel is good, you know, not like selling out or compromising your sound. And then it's just touring, man. Just, you know, getting yourself out there and working hard, you know, and getting people to hear your music, because that's the only way you're going to grow. You know, unless, you know, some major record label wants to throw a bunch of money and make everyone seem like you're huge and amazing and popular, and then that kind of just happens. But unless you get lucky like that, which doesn't happen often, you just need to focus on playing your music and touring, you know, getting the word out there.
Do kids come up to you and ask you stuff like that? Do they ask for advice?
They do, yeah. We get a lot of, you know, Myspace messages from, you know, smaller bands wondering, you know, what the key to success is, you know. It's a lot of luck, it's a lot of work, and it takes a lot of passion, you know, because if you're going to get burned out if you're not passionate about what you're doing.
Well, I think nowadays, you know, with MySpace the way it is, I think that kids can pretty much book their own tours, dude. Like,
yeah,
it's really not too complicated.
MySpace is seriously a gift to bands, you know, because you can get your music out there, and you can advertise as much as you want to advertise yourself, you know. Put up your own dates on the thing and meet other bands, you go to tours, you know. It's really a lot easier for smaller bands to have a tool like MySpace.
Thanks to Dane for coming on the show. We leave you this week shining some limelight on a band, Every Time I Die. We'll see you next week.